I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready.
Welcome to the Explore Create podcast. This is our first episode.
Yay.
This is Jeremy Mason McGraw, and I'm here with the love of my life, Suraya Bliss, and my partner and co-conspirator in so many things that we do together.
Yay.
So we just launched our first episode of Secret Spotlight, and now we're doing our first podcast of Explore Create to talk about the experience of making Secret Spotlight.
And all the adventures we have.
And all the adventures we have. We have so many adventures.
We do. Lots of fun.
It is lots of fun. So I guess I wanted to talk about, start with kind of the origin of where Secret Spotlight came from, and then we'll just kind of like talk about the experience of making it. And
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So
I think Marie thought it was a lot of fun too. Mary.
Yeah, Mary. She seemed very happy. So the text that I got from her was good, because that was the, doing an interview is one thing, but then actually like having to watch the finished episode. A lot of people, you never know how they're going to respond to their own portrayal.
I'm very happy when you shoot our places, and I'm dating you.
Yeah, but you're not always happy when I have you in something. So that's what I'm saying. Like, she was on the video,
yes.
And so her response to that video I thought was really great.
It was great. It was like, fun to see.
I love it. I'm going to share it with everyone. So
pictures turned out really nice too.
Yeah, it was fun. And, that's one of the things that I think the most exciting things for me in my professional career is when we work with a client for the first time and they maybe haven't, done like a real like solid interior photo shoot before.
Yeah.
And so that experience when, you show them and you'll hear things like, wow, I've been trying to get pictures of this space for 5 years, and this is the first time it actually like really felt like this. Like, that's the biggest, sort of thrill for me when we do anything, above the, the experience of traveling and learning about the places that we go from the client experience. That's what I enjoy the most, because I know that I actually, had an effect on their image. And so that was sort of at the essence of this idea, was that we could go to places that, they clearly put effort into the experience, that they're super host. Yeah, they're super hosts. Like, they maintain their places, they give good reviews, they give great service. But unless you are like a hospitality or marketing professional, it's not always going to be an intuitive thing for you to know how to capture and photograph and communicate a space, especially a space, because there's not a lot of photographers that do that.
Yeah, I think even if you are a marketing professional, some of the pictures we've seen, it really is hard when you walk into a space to get a picture to translate what you actually see and what you feel.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows that, just trying to take a picture, and they don't realize that it takes a lot more than a camera to actually do that. It's easier now than it's ever been, but your eye is a pretty powerful tool in itself, and to get that to translate is not easy.
And that's one of the things that when we work with clients using the iPad, like, I've always had a screen, like, before I had an app that worked on an iPad, I just had a screen that I tethered to the camera. But that was always the thing, is I realized really early on, like, I can look at a tiny screen on the back of a camera and really understand, okay, that's how this is going to translate. But I do it all the time, and most people can't. And so being able to just show them, like, this is what the image is going to look like, that always produces a completely different experience than people just sort of trusting that it's going to work out and then getting the images later. And then you get these comments like, well, I wish we would have done this. Or...
You see things, at least I do, and I think this rings true for a lot of people, when you're actually looking at a room versus a screen, you see different things. Like, you might see a wrinkle, you might see something that needs to be moved, or a room, again, when you're talking about your eye, a chair might look perfect in its place when you're standing there, but the way it translates in an image, it just looks weird. So until you can actually see what it looks like, you just miss things. I never hit send on something important until I mean, maybe it makes me old, but print it out, like step away and print it out. You can actually read it.
I was just listening to a podcast with Gary Vee talking about like basically that like whenever he has like working with clients that print out their emails, he's like, I know they're losers.
Well, it's not printing out my email. It's like it's like a press release or something, that you just can't have a mistake.
Yeah, it's different than when you're like fine-tuning copy and you need to like the detail.
Yeah, certain things. I mean, I think certain things it's okay to do on the fly. Other things, it needs to be perfect, and there's just no excuse. You see things differently. Mm-hmm. I'm not a loser.
You're not
Gary.
a loser. You're not a loser. You're not a loser.
I am getting old, though.
Well, you're pushing 50.
I know.
Yeah.
But I'm pushing it strong.
I know. Yeah, you've got a really strong,
grasp on almost 50.
Yeah. So, so it was, I guess one of the things we might talk about is why are we doing this show at all? Like, where did it come from? And I guess I'll talk a little bit about. I've been interested in trying to figure out a way of communicating something like this for a long time, and I was thinking about like probably
communicating what?
Well, I've been inspired by a lot of different people that have found ways to make really entertaining content about what they do professionally. And to me, that's always been a more extraordinary thing than the quality of the work they produce, is the ability to tell an interesting story around making the work. And that's been sort of a theme that I've tried to kind of capture a lot for, over the years. And I've done different things to try to do that. But I was just thinking about the first time I ever really saw that implemented really well was in the early days of YouTube. Rhett and Link had they actually had a website called I Love Local Commercials, and they would get big companies to sponsor them making commercials for small companies in small towns. And they were awesome. So the commercials were like, they made commercials for people that would like never be able to do a commercial. Yeah. And they were brutally honest commercials that made them even funnier, but they were also like great commercials. And just the way that they did that, I thought the whole concept was so clever because it really showed off their ability to pull a story out of this, like this seemingly like just, bland, like local business and kind of play with the people and make it into something that was really fun. And the videos went viral. The one that and I don't know if it's still online, but if you go to YouTube and like look for their I Love Local Commercials, they made one for a company that sold used mobile homes. And it's freaking great. But I remember, and that was like in the 2006 time period, 2007, maybe somewhere around there. I might be getting the time wrong. I think that was about right. Might have even been earlier than that. But anyway, I just remember watching those on YouTube and just thinking that's like, I wish I could do something like that, you know, like, because that would be the ultimate, is basically picking, sort of picking projects and going through the motions of working with clients, but it's not really about the client that you're working with. It's just about telling a great story and making stuff. And then it ended up being really effective. Like a used mobile home place in Alabama would never get a viral video on their own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I loved that.
And if they did, it probably wouldn't be good.
Yeah, it's not the right kind of video. And it was really funny. I mean, like the guy had a plate in his head and like they like outlined, it's just they took all the characters that worked there and the guy was just basically like they would just interrupt the message about the place with the guy's life story. It's like I got into a fight and now I got a metal plate in my head. You should buy a mobile home for me. Like just these weird like little
interesting.
But it was fantastic. Anyway, but that's, I think, probably where that idea got in my head, that would be so cool. And then in more current times, like I've been influenced by a lot of the things in Gary Vee's podcast talking about, like just basically, really amping up your communication and documenting your journey. And sort of, broadcasting on all of the available channels and doing it as much as you possibly can. And then also a guy from this area, Mr. Beast, he's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, but was really inspired by, he leans a lot of his content towards this sort of surprise and deliver positive message thing that works really well. So, taking people and leaving $10,000 tips on tables and stuff like that. And like, he's got a budget to do that.
Surprises. That's, I mean, I think I love good surprises. Let me caveat that. That's a great.
There's a virality to it, but it's also like it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those things, like there's all kinds of different things that I've sort of absorbed, but the idea was that, what I love to do is not actually, like what I get out of what I do is not actually what I'm doing. Like the reason that I've really, pushed towards shooting hotels and travel destinations is not because I'm into luxury or, the actual experience of the hotel, as much as those hotels are these crossroads for these really interesting stories. And by going and capturing those stories, I get to engage with those things. I get to learn about the people that make those experiences happen. I get to learn about the history that hotel embodies, and I get to see these different destinations. And when those stories are new to me, that's when the work is really exciting, because you're just taking in all this new stuff. So it's really, for me, it's that journey of traveling and discovery and just learning and experiencing new places, new people and food and all this stuff. And so that was a part of it, and then when we started talking about what we could do, we tried a lot of different ideas. I mean, we were doing 2 years ago, we were doing the our global adventures, and that was kind of a first attempt at, and that is an aspect of what I really love as well. You meet these people in these different places. It's like I end up meeting Stefan, who is the operations director for Bavaria Film Studios, where
he came to visit us.
He came to visit us, which was awesome.
I love it. That was so fun.
They shot The Never-Ending Story there. They shot Das Boot there, and he took us around and gave us a tour. We made a video about that, but then I was like, you should come visit us when you're in the U.S. And a year later, he was in the U.S. He actually came to visit us
with his wife and his daughter.
It was so much fun, because he just sort of shows
up.
Do a
photo shoot with
him.
In
a graveyard in the middle of the night. But those experiences of meeting these people, show me your world and I'll show you mine. I love that. That's actually the ultimate reward, is when you get to sort of reciprocate. So people show you around where they live and then they come visit you. That's the complete circle for me. I love that. And so, we were talking about how can we do that in a way that is maybe more relatable to people than luxury hotels? Because I find the hotels really cool, but before I'd ever worked in one, I'd never even stepped foot in one, and so it's not something that you, a lot of people I don't think intuitively have an interest in luxury hotels or even know sort of the accept them the way that I accept them, I guess. But when we travel, we stay in a lot of Airbnbs, and that experience of never really fully knowing what you're going to get, that's a part of the fun of doing Airbnbs. And so we started talking about that and kind of just realized hey, why don't we just check into Airbnbs, because we like doing that anyway, and then instead of just hanging out for the weekend or whatever, I'm going to find Airbnbs that have good ratings and they're run by people that clearly care about what they're doing, but I know I can do better images and kind of reward them for that. And so that was the first attempt, and it was a blast. I loved that whole experience.
I especially loved doing something for Mary too, because the one post was how she sort of helped someone after a hurricane. And having been through Hurricane Florence, I greatly appreciated any help there. It's a lot of fun just to be able to, I think, pick the place and then do the project that you want to do too. The hotels are amazing, and there's certainly, any of the travel stuff is amazing, opportunities to really have incredible experiences, but there's a difference when you're working for a client versus doing your own project. So I love the balance of this, just being able to pick whatever you want, shoot whatever you want, get up and go whenever you want.
And it's also like, for me, it's a sort of like, can I make a difference? Like, is my work actually better than just taking an iPhone and shooting? And
yes, it is.
yeah, but it's sort of one of those things, like, it helps to like kind of confirm that to yourself every now and then, because
I think it's also great too, I mean, practice makes perfect, right? And in an industry that is constantly changing, both travel and just digital and tools, always staying sharp, and I think that's given you an advantage along the way, is you're always playing with new technology, new equipment, and I think you have so much leeway to just have fun in different ways that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do when you're on a client shoot, because you're on someone else's time and you're there, and every second counts, every minute counts, and now you can just really play around. And I see a difference in just not the quality of work, because they're both great, but just like the mood and the tone of you while you're shooting.
Well, I think when you work with a client, you have to play with tools that and that you can deliver with consistently. So the whole thing is, how do you get experience with things that you don't necessarily know? And stuff like this is a great way to do that. One of the challenges for me on this, which I found kind of exciting, is like, it is just us. So there's no like other things. So it's like, how do I, capture a compelling story while I'm legitimately really shooting at room, because it's a full-time job. It's like, it's hard enough for me just to do that. And so that was kind of a fun thing. It's like, all right, I've got the 360 camera that, hats off to Insta360.
Yeah, no kidding. I love that thing. It's so fun. So fun.
This camera has been amazing, and so I can get these shots that I can reframe in multiple different ways, and with a minimal amount of footage, I can use that to tell the story in a lot of different ways. And so that was a fun, this was the first time that I really tried to do that on this shoot. And
well, because usually, there's at least one assistant there, and then me there. So with just the two of us, to be able to do everything that you would do, or even for part of the shoot, if I'm going out doing something, just you got a lot of amazing stuff.
Yeah. I'm really excited with our new recording studio, by the way.
I love this car.
Love it too. Subaru. So we're recording from my car right now, just in case you're listening to the audio part. And if you're watching it on YouTube, we're in a parking lot in my car, and it's a great studio, really.
It
sounds
it's
really
very
good.
Comfortable.
We got it all going on.
We spend a lot of time here, going from adventure to adventure.
That's right. It made a little appearance in the video, so it's like kind of we're recalling that. We're like making it authentic, and we're being legit about that. So this is really the car we use. That was not a prop car. Yeah. This is the real deal. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a camera malfunction or operator error. But all is well.
We fixed it.
All is well. So we're still recording. So the what we're going to talk about is obviously a big aspect of this was the Airbnb element. Normally we do high-end luxury hotels, travel destinations, and stuff that is commissioned commercially. So this was a departure, kind of working with a client that didn't know they were a client in Airbnbs, but why do you think we picked Airbnb
to travel around in Australia, or to do this?
Well, to do the project, and then what we.
I mean, at Airbnb, it's so fun because the spectrum of places is, you can be, as you know, in a room in a house with a family, in a whole house, in a little apartment. It's like really limitless, from something that's $30 to something that's $3,000. So I think that the scope of what's available. I love real estate anyway, so for me it's a lot of fun just to check out and see
different houses.
What's there.
Yeah. You do love houses.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I was just thinking like hotels are a curated experience for sure. It's a clean,
when done well.
Yeah, it's a clean, curated experience, and I think the Airbnbs force a certain amount of interaction. And I think that makes it interesting. Sometimes that can be horrible. We had a few bad experiences.
I've never had a horrible experience.
Never
I've
horrible.
had, like where the place isn't exactly what you expected,
Right.
or
they they didn't photograph the smell coming in through the window.
yeah, there was one of those. There was one of those. But I think for the most part, their ratings are reliable, and I think people are they're really they want to give people a positive experience.
Yeah.
Every time I've had a question or needed something, the response is generally really fast and really accommodating, just nice. It's like people are welcoming you into their home, and you can kind of feel well, I shouldn't say kind of, you can feel that.
Well, there's also a there's a variation, like they, because they're playing with hospitality as they understand it locally.
Yeah.
You tend to get a different kind of a vibe from them than you would from a hotel or something that is playing on an international level, where they're playing towards industry standards versus playing towards the local expectations of hospitality. I was just thinking about that guy in Randwick that you were talking about. Like, we've met some really fun people on that journey,
he was
but
great.
this older gentleman, super nice Scottish guy that was, I think he was
the caretaker of the place.
Yeah, so it was like this little, it had like 11 units, and I think some
it
of
was
them,
a neat house too.
yeah, some of them were permanent residents, and then some of them were Airbnbs, and the Airbnbs were redone and they were really good, but he was just the nicest. Where was he going, to Phoenix or
he was actually going to Phoenix. I'll have to look up his name. He was great.
Anyway, a Scottish guy lives in Australia, and he was getting ready to go to Phoenix for it was like a riding a horse. It was some like random thing.
It's some cool adventure.
Yeah, and he was going to, I think there are definitely a lot of people in the mix.
Both the places in Randwick were great.
Yeah. That other one was more of a small hotel.
It was like a boutique hotel, but it also had a very nice feel to it.
Yeah.
A nice feel to it.
I was thinking about some of the locations, like the location that we got in Melbourne, that was like perfect,
It was great.
And that's a lot of I don't know if there are even a lot of hotels in that area, but I mean, it was like walk outside the door and we're right across the street from this alleyway filled with all these really awesome local restaurants. But that's the thing too. Sometimes the locations make it interesting because it might be an area where there is a higher concentration of like sort of older, smaller residential buildings, but there aren't any like major hotels or something, or the hotels are, the one hotel is there is super expensive, but there's just a sort of a unique, the locations end up being really unique with Airbnb.
Yeah.
The place that we had in Perth, it was a little bit further out than we wanted, but the actual room was really
cool. It was a full apartment, which was really well done, and it was a great walk to the train station. So we weren't right downtown, but it was a few blocks, and you jump on a train, which I love checking out the transportation and the different little things outside of a city.
And we witnessed a full-on like police chase.
That was hilarious.
There was like some teenager that was like just zipped past us in the subway, and then there was like 10 police officers, sweaty as they could be, like trying to keep up with him. This guy was hustling. I don't know what he did, but
it was more like 2 police officers.
Yeah. Very tired, and
he
was like,
"They
that
did
guy's
not
gonna
run
get away."
as fast as the guy being chased at all. He did full on like hurdle over a turnstile.
Yeah, I mean, he was that guy was in shape.
Yeah.
So whatever he did, I just found it weird. Like whatever he did, like why do it in a confined area like a subway? Like because you could be out on the street and have like a easier, because there are only 2 ways out of, but.
Based on what I saw, he got away.
He was working on his fitness.
He got away. He had been working on his fitness.
Yes.
You don't get that fast off the couch.
You don't.
You don't get that fast off the couch.
He was ready to go, though.
Yeah, Perth was cool. I loved Brisbane. That was also a great
great location,
too.
Yeah. So we ended up in this apartment that was on Airbnb, and that was like you walk downstairs and... it was like 2 blocks from all of the shopping. It was right across the street from the main subway station. And it was... That
was a mix, though. Yeah. It was hotel / long-term rental.
Yeah,
that
it's kind
could
of a
also
building
be
that was broken up.
Sublet for Airbnb. It was great, though.
Yeah, we were right on the river.
Yeah. That was a great location. Brisbane was a great town. I was really delighted by
it. Was. We haven't
by
stayed
everything.
in Airbnb in Winton yet, but
No, but we stayed in a great hotel. It was so fun. Winton was so charming. I just loved it. What an amazing experience. I'm excited to go back there.
Me
I
too.
can't wait to go back there.